Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Brave Bison Group PLC investor presentation relating to the general meeting, acquisition of Greenlight, and the group's interim results. Throughout the presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question, and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via Investor Meet Company dashboard, and you'll be notified once these are ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Oliver Green, Executive Chairman, Theo Green, Chief Growth Officer, Philippa Norwich, Chief Financial Officer, and Matt Law, Non-Executive Director of Brave Bison Group PLC. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 10 a.m. in London, England, and I therefore propose opening the general meeting of Brave Bison Group PLC. I will begin by introducing myself and my colleagues. I'm Oliver Green, the Chairman of Brave Bison, and I will be chairing the general meeting. I'm attending the meeting in person with my fellow directors, Theo Green, Philippa Norwich, and Matt Law. It is intended that voting on all resolutions at this meeting will be conducted on a poll rather than a show of hands. A poll reflects the number of voting rights exercisable by each shareholder, and so the board considers it a more democratic method of voting, which is important as shareholders have been advised not to attend this meeting in person due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A poll also ensures that the votes of shareholders who have appointed proxies are taken into account in the final voting results. Under Article 27 of the Articles, in my capacity as chairman of the meeting, I hereby call a poll in respect of all the resolutions. This meeting has been convened to consider one ordinary resolution and one special resolution. A special resolution requires at least 75% of the voting rights being voted to be cast in favour for the resolution to be passed. An ordinary resolution requires more than 50% of the voting rights being voted to be cast in favour for the resolution to be passed. The business of the meeting is confined to the consideration of the resolutions contained in the notice that was posted to shareholders on the 13th of August 2021. If there are no objections, I propose taking the notice convening the meeting as read. I'm informed that we have at least 2 shareholders present in person or by proxy. I therefore declare that a quorum is present. Each shareholder who lodged a proxy has directed how their proxy should vote in respect of the votes for or against the resolution. Resolution 1, authority to allot shares. Prior to putting the first resolution to the meeting, I would like to draw your attention to the following proxies received by the company in relation to the resolution. For 269,611,853, which represents 99.25% of votes cast by proxy. Against 2,043,898, which represents 0.75% of votes cast by proxy. At the chairman's discretion, 0, and voting withheld, 0. The first resolution is an ordinary resolution conditional on the passing of Resolution 2. The directors of the company be generally and unconditionally authorised, in accordance with Section 551 of the 2006 Act, to exercise all powers to allot shares in the company and to grant rights to subscribe for or to convert any security into shares in the company up to an aggregate nominal amount of £455,000 in connection with a placing, the details of which are set out in the circular, provided that this authority shall, unless renewed, varied or revoked by the company in general meeting, expire on the conclusion of the general meeting of the company to be held in 2022, or if earlier, the date falling 15 months after the passing of this resolution, save that the directors may at any time before such expiry make an offer or agreement which would or might require relevant securities to be allotted after such expiry, and the directors may allot relevant securities in pursuance of such offer or agreement, notwithstanding that the power conferred by this resolution has expired. This authority is in addition to all previous authorities conferred upon the directors of the company pursuant to Section 551 of the Act at the 2021 Annual General Meeting. I can now give you the voting on the poll. The result is 269,611,853 votes in favour and 2,043,898 votes against the resolution, and I declare the resolution carried by the requisite majority. Resolution 2, disapplication of preemption rights. Prior to putting the second resolution to the meeting, I would like to draw your attention to the following proxies received by the company in relation to the resolution. 4. 269,611,853 votes, which represents 99.25% of those votes cast by proxy. Against 2,043,898 votes, representing 0.75% of votes cast by proxy. At the chairman's discretion, 0, and votes withheld, 0. The second resolution is a special resolution conditional upon the passing of Resolution 1, that the directors be generally empowered pursuant to Section 570 of the 2006 Act to allot equity securities for cash as if Section 561 of the 2006 Act did not apply to any such allotment pursuing to the general authority conferred on them by Resolution 1 above, and the power hereby conferred shall, unless renewed, varied, or revoked by the company in general meeting, expire on the conclusion of the annual general meeting of the company to be held in 2022, or, if earlier, the date falling 15 months after the passing of this resolution, say that the directors may at any time before such expiry make an offer or agreement which would or might require equity securities to be allotted after such expiry, and the directors may allot equity securities in pursuance of such offer or agreement, notwithstanding that the power conferred by this resolution has expired. I can now give you the voting on the poll. The result is 269,611,853 votes in favour and 2,043,898 votes against the resolution, and I declare the resolution carried by the requisite majority. That concludes the formal business of this meeting, which I declare closed, and on behalf of the board and myself, I would like to thank you all for attending. We will make a further announcement of the final results of the meeting to the markets through our regulatory information service and post it on our website as soon as practicable. We are now going to give a short presentation on our interim results, as well as the acquisition, after which we'll be happy to take questions. So firstly, I'd just like to reintroduce the Brave Bison board. As I said, I am chairman of Brave Bison. I've been in my role now for just over 18 months, but my entire career has already been spent in marketing and advertising. Prior to Brave Bison, I was the managing director of top 100 digital marketing and technology company, Tangent. And now I'm going to introduce you to Philippa Norridge.
Good morning, my name is Philippa and I'm the CFO of Brave Bison. I qualified as a chartered accountant around about 15 years ago, and I've worked in marketing and advertising ever since then. I've worked at a mixture of independent agencies and big networks. Recently, I spent 6 years at Profaro, which was an independent digital network when I joined, but which was subsequently bought by IPG, one of the big holding companies, and after that merged with Lowe, which then became Mullen Lowe, which then also did a number of acquisitions. I then moved to Tangent, which is where I first worked with Ollie and Theo. I then moved to Brave Bison, initially on an interim basis in February of last year, and became permanent CFO in May. I now pass you over to Theo, our Chief Growth Officer.
Good morning, my name is Theo Green, and like Philippa said, I'm the Chief Growth Officer of Brave Bison. I also worked at Tangent alongside Ollie and Philippa, and before that I spent 3 years working in private equity. I worked for a firm called Brockton Capital, which at the time had gross assets of around £6 billion. And also with us today is Matt Law, our non-executive director.
Hi, My name is Matt Law. I'm the non-executive director. I've been with the firm for about 18 months in this capacity. I also have a role at Outlier Ventures, which is an early stage venture capital firm. And I've been working in the media and technology industry for a long time, previously as Global Chief Operating Officer at Analog Folk, and before that, Tribal Worldwide and DDB Worldwide. Back to Ollie.
So we thought it might be helpful for prospective investors to just summarize the existing Brave Bison business. We like to view our business as having two distinct pillars. The first pillar is a social marketing agency. And this is where we work with global brand advertisers on social and digital marketing campaigns. And we work with big brands, large enterprises like Vodafone, Panasonic, Lego, and Uniqlo. As well as having our social and digital marketing agency, we also have a digital first media network that we use to create and publish content on channels that is watched across hundreds of millions and billions of people. And some of our content is owned and some of our channels are owned, but also some of our channels are managed on behalf of third-party rights holders. And these are companies like the US Open, Universal, Comic Relief, or anyone that wants to monetize and manage content online.
Brave Bison started 2021 in much better shape than the previous year, and we are pleased to report that this was borne out by the results for the first half. Our revenue overall increased to 7.3 million from 5.5 million in H1 2020, an increase of 32%. This was primarily driven by an increase in the advertising revenue across the group's media network. In particular, our YouTube network continues to go from strength to strength, with revenues growing by 38% on the same period in the prior year. An element of this is, of course, a result of the impact of the pandemic on advertising revenues in April and May last year. However, we can still see underlying revenue growth of around 20%. The trajectory of our adjusted EBITDA is even more encouraging. We restructured the business in 2020, and this allowed us to make annualized cost savings in the region of 1.9 million. As a result, our adjusted EBITDA increased from a negative 0.4 million in H1 2020 to a positive 0.5 million in H1 2021, which represents a margin on gross profit of 28%. This then translates to a profit before tax and acquisition costs of 0.4 million and a profit before tax of 0.2 million. Our balance sheet at the half-year mark remains strong, with net cash balances of 2.9 million. Just to touch on some of the other events that happened in the first half of 2021, on the social marketing agency side, we ranked second in the Drums UK Digital Agency census. There were also some significant client wins and contract renewals during the period, including Panasonic, Vodafone, Suntory, CLP20, the Caribbean Premier League, Damac Properties, Hyper, and the BBC. We also helped launch the second series of the UK's biggest TikTok content house, The Wave House.
So now moving on a little bit towards Greenlight, which is the business that we have now acquired. I think firstly, the key for us is we think we're in a really exciting market with Brave Bison today, but also in combination with Greenlight. So here are some of the key macro trends that we feel underpin both these companies and give it quite an exciting future. So firstly, we see ourselves as being inextricably linked to this digital advertising market in the top left-hand corner. This market has grown rapidly over the last 5 years, and it now represents over 50% of global ad spend. In addition to a resilient performance during COVID-19, the overall market is forecast to grow over the next 5 years, and the majority of that growth will be coming from the digital segment. So we like our macro market, but we also think our micro market is strong. Brave Bison, through its combination with Greenlight, will be providing clients with some of the most in-demand and highest growth services available. We are digital first, but we have a real pedigree in social media, namely social media management and influencer marketing, and through the acquisition of now Greenlight, paid search and SEO. Our advertising business is also well positioned for the future of media consumption. Our 650 channels are heavily weighted towards YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat. And we are seeing every year that these platforms are quickly becoming the dominant medium for video content for young people, both in the UK and abroad. And finally, an anecdotal comparison between the traditional and new media available to brands today. And of course, this will always be product and market dependent. But our bet is that CMOs all over the world are going to be shifting their budgets away from TV, from print, and from out of home into these digital channels that we are best placed to execute on, providing better returns, better conversions, and better attribution. So now on to Greenlight. Greenlight is an established digital advertising and technology company that's based in King's Cross, that has a presence across Eastern Europe with an office in Bulgaria. They work mostly with large omnichannel retailers and e-commerce companies on the execution of digital advertising campaigns and technology projects for large transactional websites. So the company is fundamentally a services business. It generates fee-based income from clients. But budgets for these clients are typically linked to the annual media spend on a specific platform, such as Google, Facebook, or Amazon. The business consists of around 120 people, the majority of whom are based in London, and key clients include some excellent blue chip brands like Dixon's Carphone, New Balance, and Muller. In the past 2 years, Greenlight has generated between 14 and 16 million pounds of revenue and adjusted EBITDA, and this is on a pre-IFRS 16 basis, between 700 and 800,000 pounds. We think this margin is lower than it should be, and we'll be working to improve this over the coming months and years. Furthermore, we see a number of opportunities for expansion, both within territories and clients. We've boiled down the acquisition rationale for Greenlight into 3 key reasons. Firstly, we see this acquisition as being a real strategic leap forward. Our range of services has increased significantly. Our number of clients has increased significantly, and the depth and the talent of our team is now industry leading. Secondly, we believe this deal makes good financial sense for Brave Bison. We've bought this business on an attractive multiple, we've doubled our revenue on a pro forma basis, and we believe there are good opportunities to increase profits over the coming years, including through the rationalization of a cost base centered around office lease costs. Finally, we believe this acquisition will improve the overall stability of Brave Bison by successfully diversifying and strengthening the overall revenue mix. We are now being paid fees by over 50 clients. We have no major client risk, and our income profile is mostly contracted and recurring, giving us good visibility on revenues going forward.
So this diagram depicts our vision for the group moving forward, and it's made up of our current business as well as an expanded model. And on the left-hand side, you have our current digital and social capabilities that exist within our existing social marketing agency, but you also have the new capabilities that we'll gain through the acquisition of Greenlight. And these include paid media, search engine optimization, and conversion rate optimization. And on the right-hand side, you have our existing media network that includes our YouTube channels and Snapchat shows, but you also have additions to the network with things like podcasts and even more Instagram communities. And we're really keen to expand into new verticals and content niches, and we're looking at acquisitions on both sides of the equation. It's worth reminding everyone that the business model for the left-hand side will always be fee-based income. The business model for the right-hand side is a combination of advertising and branded content, as well as more direct-to-consumer revenue with things like subscription and commerce. What we're ultimately creating is a flywheel for growth, as one side feeds the other. The bigger and more engaged our audiences are on the right-hand side, the more relevant they become to brand advertisers already buying digital capabilities from us on the left-hand side. At the same time, the teams that we employ and the talent that we have within our business that services our clients on the left-hand side helps us to build out and optimize the digital experiences on the right-hand side. We're now going to take some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your question using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of the screen. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Just perhaps before we go on to the live questions, I know we had a pre-submitted question, and perhaps Theo, if I may just hand back to you to respond to that one, and then if we can go on to the live Q&A and just read out the question where appropriate to do so and give your response, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. So we've had a question come in about participation of private investors in the fundraising, and whether we should have used either an open offer or a platform like Primary Bid to enable them to participate. It's frustrating for ourselves. In this instance, it wasn't possible. In order to acquire Greenlight, the vendor required 100% certainty that the funds would have been received, and they were not willing to accept something conditional upon a fundraising. So in this instance, a private placement was in the best interest of everyone to get this transaction over the line. However, going forward, we don't believe we will be acquiring businesses in this way. We think it will be a larger portion of consideration shares and a smaller portion of cash raised, which will mean that going forward, we do anticipate including the private investor community on platforms like Primary Bid more likely than an open offer, given our size.
Can see another question here. What is the sales strategy for new clients, and do you now see cross-sell opportunities with Greenlight, and how much of your revenue is repeat? So in terms of our sales and marketing strategy, content is a big part of what we do. We produce content and distribute that across platforms like LinkedIn, which is where brand managers and marketing directors are looking for new suppliers. And so the creation and distribution of content in the right places is a big part of our sales and marketing strategy. At the same time, across the Brave Bison group, there is a very strong network of people that either used to work for us or that were part of another client that was in our ecosystem. And so within our business, there's a very good network of marketing directors and CMOs and brand managers that are looking for agencies like ourselves that are independent and are fast growing and that are doing things differently to help them grow their own businesses. In terms of cross and upselling to Greenlight, there's definitely a big opportunity to do this. We see a massive opportunity specifically to cross-sell Greenlight's digital marketing capabilities, specifically in paid search, into our APAC network of clients. We already work with some fantastic brands within the APAC region, brands like Uniqlo, brands like Panasonic. We've worked with Tencent in the past, and it's very much our ambition to spin up a paid media team within the APAC region, probably out of our Singapore office. And in terms of how much of our revenue is repeat, it's more than 70% now is contracted recurring revenue, which we're very happy about.
We also had a question asking what our target EBITDA margin was in the medium term for the combined business. Now, I think, and I'm talking EBITDA after property costs here. So EBITDA after property costs to gross profit margin, I would say we would be looking in the region of between 15 and 20% for the combined business. That's generally the target for the sector, and that's where we think we should be able to get to.
What operational gearing do you see in the combined business? I think that the new Brave Bison group with the Greenlight addition puts us in a much better position to look at things like taking on more debt. It will make that debt cheaper moving forward as a result of our balance sheet being stronger. And so I think that operational gearing is something that we're in a much better place to talk about as a board and think about as a board moving forward after having acquired Greenlight's business.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. I think you have actually covered off all those questions that we've had through from investors. And if we do have any further questions, of course, you'll be able to review those and we'll publish responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Oliver, perhaps I could just hand back to you to wrap up before we redirect the investors to give you some feedback.
Thank you, Mark. I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you very much for everyone that attended this meeting. We look forward to updating all shareholders as well as the market with our progress over the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you again to the board for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session? You should be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Brave Bison Group PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session.